Hello YouTube, today we're going to be doing a little video, and it's going to be about how to tell somebody's skill level. Now this kind of goes hand in hand with bluffing, because if you can tell somebody's skill level, you'll know how to bluff when you face them. Like example is when I'm playing somebody in poker. If I'm playing people who are inexperienced with bluffing and lying in poker, I am going to pretend I have a bad hand to trick them. Now, if I'm playing good people, I will probably act a little bit either overly confident, or I'm going to act like just a little underconfident, or I'm going to bid like every round, because it depends on how my audience wants to play. And when you're gambling in poker, the game is to make your opponents bet as much as you can, to make it so when your big hand is ready to win and you're able to take some of their money right there, you can take as much as possible on that hand. So let's get started here. Like card D, we're just talking about this, is one way you can tell your opponent's skill level is how well they know the game, how much they know common cards, and if they're going to like axe you if you're going to use an effect. Like card D is, it's a great effect. It's an effect that people play Book of Moon on, because it stops the card from getting his effect. So now if that's the case, the odds of you summoning card D and not using his effect are pretty weird, and I would say probably zero. So that's an example. If your opponent doesn't think you're going to use card D's effect, they're probably not the best, or a mediocre player at best. Same with Dwarf, the Star Dragon Planetaire. It basically, if this card remains face up on the field during the end phase, you get to add a level 7 light or dark. Despite that not being as great as card D in some aspects, why would you not ever try to get as many plus effects, thin out your deck as much as possible, so you can actually go into some of the bigger plays that you want to do later in the duel. That's an example. Another one here is Cyber Dragon Nova. Now, sometimes you're just not going to use the effect, but if you like, say, Cyber Nova's effect, and then you're going to say your opponent going to respond with which one, when you have a Cyber Dragon on the field and a Cyber Dragon in the grave, it probably is a safe bet they're not the greatest, because most players will detach and summon another Cyber Dragon so they can get maximum damage, then use Nova's effect so he get double attack after your Cyber Dragons had declared their attack, because of Nova having a quick effect, so he can use an effect like Honest. It's just obvious when he has it, except for when the Cyber Dragons are in your hand. So that's the case. It kind of telling your opponent kind of telling you their skill level when they ask you a question like that. I mean, they're probably a mediocre player then, because not everyone knows you can use Nova's effect in the battle phase of banishing and making his attack points 4,200. So that's slightly understandable, but it still tells you what your opponent's skill level, so you will have a little understanding. Another thing is how common and popular is your combo, like the Nova into Infinity from Teller Knight. That's a pretty common combo that a lot of players know. If you're, a lot of people know this combo and they don't act like they know about it, then they're probably not the greatest player. Like Tech Genius Hyper Librarian. It's pretty known fact that this card is primarily used to help you summon Quasar. I think there are very few people, if at any, that do not know about this card with Quasar combos. But that's just an example, is if they do not think that something like that might be happening, they might be showing you they're not the greatest in the world. I mean, there are some effects where it could be questionable, where somebody say, hey, I might want to get this effect off for this combo. The combo may be a little bit weird and convoluted at this moment, but I may want to do it. Like, one idea here is Farfa, which has a instant matter transporter effect that you can use on your monster or your opponent monster. Now, reasons why you might want to use it on your monster is, example, start assault mode. If it's summoned with Assault Revival, it has the effect negated. But when it returns on the field, Stardust Assault Mode will now have its effect, and then you can do everything Assault Mode wants to do, messing with your opponent and making it so they are basically facing a Quasar that's a little bit tougher to remove. So that's just another idea. And that's also, you can banish your opponent. So that's actually a questionable effect at times, is Farfa, because you might even want to protect your monster from being destroyed by battle. So that's a good one. Now, like Limit Overdrive, this is actually where we're going into an uncommon combo where your opponent might not know about it, and your opponent, this one could be harder to gauge with your opponent's skill level, because there is a 4-card Cypher / Quasar combo with this, with using Quick Draw, Junk Synchron, Doppel Warrior with Limit Reverse, where you're just going to have Quick Draw and Doppel go into Nitro or Junk Berserker, and you're going to summon Excel Synchron from the 2 tokens and Junk. Like I said, so not everyone see that one's coming. I can't spell, forget that. But that's just one of these cases where you're using a little bit more of an obscure combo, but it's going to pay off because your opponent not really prepared for it, and they didn't know what to stop at the first time. Like, there was a time at some Yu-Gi-Oh tournament a while ago, somebody lost to Berserk Dragon because they didn't see the combo of summoning Beast King Barbossa with Nightmare Archfiend and a deal with Dark Ruler. They just had no idea, so they didn't know they needed to stop Barbossa. But that's a thing right there. Now another thing is, you will be able to use this for bluffing. Like, sometimes keep a trap will, you know what, I'm going to keep that for another video, is telling you guys how to bluff properly depending on skill level and different ways you can bluff. So that will be a video for another day, probably be the next one I make. So have a great day. See you guys again. Bye.